Never leave the house with a debit card because a debit card doesn't have zero liability protection, and somebody can steal that card and make purchases with your debit card. So with a credit card, all you gotta do is call the number on the back of your credit card. The only time you should use a debit card is to put money in your bank, a deposit, or to get some money out the ATM. Another thing, a lot of banks they have the tap button where you just tap the debit card. If you were to put the debit card in there, it makes it more likely that someone could press the eject button and take it out. So when you use the debit card, just tap it. There's a chip, and put in your pocket. When it's in your pocket, it's safer. Someone would have to go in your pocket. You could run away if they try getting close to you, so they can't steal your money or your card. But it's happened before, where what happens is they'll eject it and take it, the debit card, and they'll try getting some money. So it's best to tap it. And with a debit card, I mean with a credit card, like I said, it's zero liability against purchases. Another thing, if someone steals it, that's the type of fraud, because then the credit card has fraud protection. So with fraud protection, if someone, usually people think of fraud protection like nearby, someone makes purchases, but fraud protection is more like if someone uses your credentials of your card number, your date, and your security number online, and they could do fraud. But thankfully, if they were to get those information, then the credit card protected. The debit card won't protect it. One thing the debit card does do is it protects up to, I think, by 250,000 in the debit card. But still, it's not going to use a debit card. And by using the credit card, in America, that's how you build your credit. Now, in America, as a child, when I was in my childhood, they always told me, and they told other kids, you want to build your credit to buy furniture. And when you buy furniture, you'll make more money. But the problem with buying furniture is the furniture company's a middleman. See, it's best to buy furniture online, and it's the same furniture. It's all made in China. So what happened was they raised my generation to buy, telling us, give the advice to buy furniture. But I was also giving other advice to wait until the price is right. And that's what I did. I just had a bed until one day I bought a recliner. I bought the recliner online, and the bed I bought it. It's a memory foam mattress, but another way of describing it, it's a bed in a box where they squish it into a box, and then you open up the vacuum seal. There's a plastic. You open it up with a knife, and what it does, it expands instantly, instant gratification. See, when someone steals your money, when they know it's a credit card, it hinders their bad attitude because they'll mention, oh, it's a credit card. It might slow them down just enough because they're thinking they want to get you where they're going to keep your money, and they know you can get it back. Because if a debit card, they're thinking if it's a debit card, they know if you get the money back. With a credit card, they're thinking they just got to call their bank up. They're thinking there's some way that they won't make money. This is how crooks think. and fraudsters. So this is some money advice. A lot of people say they only use their debit card because the credit card charges interest, but they don't realize that the credit cards have a grace period, and as long as you pay within 30 days, you won't be charged interest. So you don't get charged interest. You get a credit line when you don't have money, because that's what a credit card does. You might not have money, you can purchase something you need, a necessity. And so if you think about it, a credit card is going to help you win, win, win. There's a lot of other reasons to use a credit card. I built my credit up. First, I built it up to good credit, and then I built it up to excellent credit. All because of a credit card. I'm an African American. A lot of African Americans cash their check at the grocery store. To be a successful African American, you have to have a checking account, a savings account, and an online savings account. Because online savings accounts have a higher interest rate. There's savings accounts online with 3% interest rate per year. And so 3% interest rate is what happens with inflation, because inflation in America is, on average, historically in America, 3% per year. But ever since COVID-19, the interest rate went up for inflation and with grocery bills. I was saying African American has to have, and other minorities in America and other minorities in the world, you have a checking account, a savings account, an online savings account, a credit card, and a debit card to put money in the bank to pay the credit card bill, credit card balance. And like I said, there's no need to use a debit card, because if you're thinking the debit card has no interest rate, as long as you pay your bill in 30 days for the credit card, you won't be charged interest, because the credit cards call that a grace period. So you don't have to pay a monthly fee from a bank, but you do have to pay the monthly fee from a bank to put into the card. And there's a lot of cards with no monthly membership fee. There's several. People who aren't familiar, they might give an excuse and say there's a rate they have to pay every month. But they don't stop to think they just need to apply for some online. They don't have any monthly fee. Throughout history, African Americans weren't allowed to own houses historically in America. Neither other minorities. So the way you empower the black community is you yourself, if you're African, is to is to apply for an online credit card and be money wise. Usually people are educated, use a credit card more, which increases their credit, meaning their credit limit. The more you borrow, the more they'll trust you that you can borrow, right? And they'll raise your credit limit. So you might start off with your first credit card with 500 credit limit. Then if you do it right and pay everything on time, they'll raise that credit limit to 1,000. People who go to college have a checking account. So you got to try your best to get a checking account. A lot of people are afraid that the banks will charge them a late fee, but people never got the news. They never got the noticias that the American government was, after they started charging the bank started charging people the American government started punishing the bank legally. I don't know if it was with fines. It might have been. But American government didn't like that because they felt the banks were taking advantage of Americans with the high late fees, which were $35 if you didn't have enough in your debit card. Or with a credit card, there are no late fees. See, the way you help yourself in America is by using credit. It expands your horizons. If you limit yourself to what you have, that's not good. Now, some people are saying debit cards are better, but the only time you want to buy something cash is if it would be a house or a car. Because if you buy a house cash, then if the house is $150,000 for the house, like 20 years ago, houses were like $150,000 in different municipalities. That means different towns. So if 20 years ago, so say today if it was 150, then what happens is you would only pay 150,000, and then after 30 years you would end up paying over a little bit over 300. You would end up paying over 300,000 because you're paying. So the lender pays the bank 150,000. The lender is going to want another 150,000, and that's for rates when they say 4%. I don't know if it's 4% APR or if they just call it 4% interest. 4% means that people don't know it, but they're only paying half up front, and these lenders are sneaky. They're gonna make you pay double. So 150,000 house 20 years ago is when you after 30 years, hasn't been 30 years yet, it would be it would be 300,000. But now that $300,000 house, as the 30-year loan is finally paid off, it's gonna be worth $600,000 nowadays. So the house started off being 150,000 in 2008, and now the house is gonna be worth over $500,000, which is starting to sound like LA. Because in LA is worse, because if in LA, if you buy a house for $500,000, 500,000 in a residential area, then the house in LA are going to cost $1 million for a 3-bedroom house. If you buy a house in LA, say it's 800,000, it says on Zillow.com. Well, when you're done, you're going to pay over 1.6 million. Plus, when you're done paying 30 years later, it's going to be worth double. So that's capital gain. So that's why you pay for houses cash, and you got to pay for cars cash. But when it comes to everyday purchases, use your credit card, not your debit card. If you use your credit card, you'll be more successful in life. More successful people in life use more credit cards. They use more credit and they use more credit cards. People who are successful in life use a debit card. They cash their check at the store. They go to pawn shops. They pawn their item. At the pawn shop, you can either pawn your item or sell it to the pawn shop. When you pawn it, what you do is you leave it there, and they give you a loan with a high interest rate, and then what they do, or what you do, is you come back and get it after you pay the interest rate, after you got the money and spent it and made the money back, you give it back to them. And so when you use people with high interest rates in town instead of depending on the American banking system, the American banking system has made people successful in life. In America, our dollar is stronger. We have more purchasing power because of the dollar as consumers. Use the American banking system. Most people think of that as debit cards, but the banks only go so far with debit. To use the American banking system, you have to realize the credit cards companies are banks like Chase, Synchrony Bank. So when people say I use my debit card, they only went so far, they only went halfway. Because if you use debit card, that's one bank, and then that bank puts money into your other bank, which is more money, which is more chances for potential in America. The potential increases exponentially with credit. This is how successful white businessmen have prospered. Throughout history, a lot of American businesses started their business by maxing out several credit cards. And that money was enough to leverage their company, that they had a career, perhaps a mom and pop shop. Perhaps they became billionaires.